Trigger warning, Marcia and I do discuss grief and loss of an adult child in this episode. If this is not for you, please feel free to skip and come back for next week's episode.
They say motherhood is a journey, but let's be honest, sometimes it feels more like a roller coaster with no seatbelt. I bet you're like me, wondering why babies, or teens in my case, don't come with instruction manuals. Welcome to This Incredible Mom Life, the podcast that celebrates the beautiful chaos, quiet wins, messy moments, and everyday miracles of being a mom. I'm your host, Dummy, wellness coach, mom of 3 boys, and a passionate believer that you don't have to live at the mercy of PMS, burnout, or exhaustion. Join me every week as we hear the craziest and most unbelievable mom stories. I'll be sharing the huge accomplishments and triumphs of both our moms and their kids. We'll giggle, cheer on the kids, and discuss obstacles and lessons learned along the way. If you are struggling to be the best mom you can be, how open-minded are you to booking a free call with me? You don't have to live at the mercy of your cycle, and you definitely don't have to do it alone. Give yourself permission to let me be part of your support system. I believe that you weren't meant to just survive motherhood. You were meant to thrive in it. Hello, here we are again for another episode of This Incredible Mom Life. I have another super mom guest with me today. Marcia Earhart is a certified life, trauma, grief, brain, and mental health coach, mediator, author, and HeartSync minister. Her guidance is both professional and personal. Having navigated the deaths of 2 sons within the last 11 years, one tragically murdered, she stands as a testament to God's faithfulness in the deepest valleys of grief, and now leads others in healing. Her powerful new book, Gripping Grace in the Garden of Grief, is a raw and vulnerable chronicle of devastating loss. More than a memoir, it is a lifeline exploring the fragile threads of love and pain that hold us together and revealing the God-given hope that can rebuild a shattered life. Marcia's mission extends beyond the page. As the co-founder of the Sterling Rose Sanctuary, a 501c3 nonprofit, she is boots on the ground in the mental health crisis. She creates a haven for the grieving to release their trauma and pain so they can breathe again, move again, and live again. Her ministry reaches a diverse community across the United States and 6 other countries, standing as a powerful reminder that in deep sorrow, no one has to walk alone. Thank you, Marcia, for taking time out of your day to be here with me.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
So usually I have my moms jump right into a mom story, and that's what I'm going to do with you today.
Okay, so we have 5 children, and our second one, we have 3 of our children were adopted, and our second was a little girl, and she's Lumbee Indian African American, supposedly by descent. So when we brought her home, as her hair kept growing, I did not know how to deal with her hair. And so her little hair would just be like just on the top of her little head. And just, I'm like, I've got to learn how to do this. So I had been teaching high school prior, and I was very close to several of my students. So a couple of my African American students came over to help me know how to manage her hair, told me the products I needed to buy, the things I needed to do. So as a mom, I had to learn how to do her hair because it's very different than the structure of my hair and the way my hair was. And so she leaves cream rinse in her hair. Like if I left cream rinse in my hair, it would just be so disturbing and disgusting. But she can do that. And then she has these beautiful curly ringlets and gorgeous hair. But it was kind of comical because I had to call my friends and go, girls, I don't know what I'm doing with this hair. And I've got to have her look precious as she is. So I just love that. It's one of my favorite stories to tell because, it's part of, I think, growing as a mom, learning, each child has different things, different needs, and it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah, absolutely. There was actually a TV show
a few years ago. This Is Us. I don't know if you've seen it, but
Yes, love it.
the same thing happened to her, right? She adopted an African American boy, and she didn't
Yes.
know how to cut his hair and this and that. And I think one of her friends was like, "You need to take him to a special barber," and this and that.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm glad that you learned something
Yeah.
new, something
And it,
totally different,
yeah.
and you were able to help your daughter. It's
Yes, and we actually
beautiful.
could relate to that show because that really was kind of like our household
Oh yeah,
magnified. Yes, and I
nice.
think it's probably the best show that deals with layers of grief.
Yeah. Oh God, yes. I cried every few episodes, I think.
Me too. And actually, that show really helped me grieve losses I had not grieved.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Well, there
Yep.
you go. I didn't even know that when I brought it up, but
Yep. Yep.
um, all right. So, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I am a mom. I am a wife, daughter friend, and I love that part of my life. But on the professional side, I am a life, grief, trauma, brain, mental health coach, mediator, HeartSync minister. I get to have the privilege of being on holy ground with people every day, mostly all day, bringing deliverance and healing into their lives from trauma and grief. And it has been such an amazing and remarkable journey for me. It kind of came out of a transition in my own life after our oldest son passed in 2014 tragically, and it's what birthed the changes in my own life. And so I would say I emerged into a new me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you follow the mythical creatures world, but I call myself a phoenix, where I
Yes, rise above from the ashes. Yes.
rise from the ashes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I see that in your story. So that is pretty amazing. Um, so share with us, and I know I had this misconception about grief too, that um, there is a common misconception that we go through 5 stages of grief, but it's actually not that. So can you talk
No,
about
it's
that?
not. Well, Kubler-Ross is the one that is noted for the 5 stages, but it was 5 stages of death. I'm really not sure where this transitioned into the 5 stages of grief because I've heard that all my life.
Yep.
And not until in my own grief and becoming a grief uh, coach did I realize that that was a myth. First of all, I think, and this is, I was just talking to someone about this the other day because they were like, well, I haven't really gone through this emotion and that emotion. And I don't know when that's going to happen. And I said, well, first of all, it may never happen because this isn't a box that we check off. Some of us may experience a variance of emotions, and we do when we're grieving, but they're not going to be 5 stages. There's not 5 stages. I mean, I can be really feeling a depth of sorrow in one moment and then really having an experience of joy the next moment and remembering a memory. And so that's integrated. It's not like I'm in a stage. And so I think grief is an ebb and flow of those emotions. And you see kind of the parallels in that I'm going to have the opposite. I'm going to experience one, but then the opposite, sometimes within the same framework of that. And I think that's part of our process. And I do think I love that, we always talk about that grief isn't linear. It's not. And I think we want grief to be this I'm starting here and I'm going to move in here, and it's going to be this nice, neat little package. And if I just do these things, I'm going to get here quicker. And that's not the way it works. To me, the best advice for anybody who's grieving is that intentionality is what brings healing. And that's really
Yeah.
what I think we want all people to have healing. So you have to be intentional and to be honest with the emotion you're experiencing in that space at that time.
Yeah, in that moment, right? So,
Yes,
um, yes, you can go through all the stages. You can go through one or none of them, right? And they're not in any particular order. They can
yeah,
come and go. And everyone has their own unique way of grieving. So
Yes.
talk a little bit more about that.
In the Sterling Rose Sanctuary, we use the Enneagram, especially if we've got couples or we have a family, that we actually have them do the Enneagram so they can kind of see how they're wired. And that's been a really helpful tool because the way I grieve and the way you grieve, Amy, are going to probably be different ways. There may also be similarities in our grief. So let me kind of describe that. You can have an internal griever or an external griever, and you can have someone who does both. But if you are an internal griever, and by that I mean someone who really is working through their own grief within themselves, versus someone who externally is talking all the time about, I just can't believe this happened. If I'd only done or da, da, and everything that they're thinking is being spoken out loud. There's going to be a conflict with internal and external grievers because the internal griever at some point is going to go, I can't do this. Like you're just I need to have my time to grieve internally. And the external griever is going to be upset because they want someone to listen to them. So we work with this. And so we have to come to a place of how can we come together and encourage one another and be uh, present in each other's space. So there are boundaries, there's limitations. Someone can say, well, that's really cruel. No, it's not, because everybody's grieving. If we're all grieving, we need to hold space, but we also need to have our own space. So we work with individuals as to how to walk that out. And I can give an example. For us, we had a picture done for the life celebration of our son. And my daughter and I wanted that picture present in our house, hanging. My son and my husband did not. Now, why the difference? Well, that was triggering to my husband and my son, but my daughter and I found it very healing. We wanted to see his precious face and we wanted to be able to smile at his smile. And that really brought a sense of connection to him. But my son and my husband would get triggered into a deep sorrow. So we sat down and said, how can we work through this? On a scale from 1 to 5, how triggering is this to you? And on a scale of 1 to 5, how healing is it to me and to my daughter? And so what we had to do is look at those numbers, and find a place that we could hang that picture that would not be triggering to them, but would be able to be healing to us. And we did. And that really is how all of grief needs to be looked at. Any kind of conflict. I think we come in with a presupposition that everybody grieves the way we do, especially if we're in the grief. And so if I feel like we need to set a place at the table on special events, and I don't understand why you don't want a place set at the table when he's not present, the propensity for someone grieving is to take offense that you're not supportive to my grief. There's nothing that could be further from the truth. We have to give everybody a place to be able to heal. And so, again, it may be a 5 for you to have a place at the table. And what I'm going to say is not at the table with everybody else in that meal. Later on, you can sit down and have a place at the table with whomever it was that you desired, and you can do that on your own. And you can have that creation and that moment where you invest in that. But some of these things we have to learn we need to do without having other people come alongside of us.
Yeah, and I think communication is must be a big
Yes,
aspect of this, right? Because
it
if
is
I don't
talking.
understand how
Yes,
you're grieving, like you said, I might take offense or
yes.
be
Daily
triggered in a totally
conversation
different
is
way.
important. Yes. And we have to have those conversations. We really encourage families and individuals and couples every day have a time that y'all can discuss what has been the hardest part of today. Where was a place you really felt ministered to in your spirit today? And How can I be supportive to you right now? Is there something I can be supportive to? And if everybody's doing that, then we're being honest, we're really talking with authenticity, and we are being transparent, then that is where we move forward in our healing, and we keep that unity and that connection and the relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. And you work with the families together, right? And you sit down and you talk to everybody. So that's really helpful. Now, I know we were discussing previously that grieving is a holistic
Yeah.
approach. So tell us a little bit about that.
I think when individuals are grieving, they think that it's emotional, and it's the emotion aspect. But grieving really is about the mind, the body, the soul, and the spirit. And in healing, all of it has to come in to the presence for healing. And when I'm talking about the mind, people are like, what do you mean? Well, our mind is where the battle begins. It's the lies, it's the wrong perceptions, in some cases, that we idolize the person that has passed. And we're not looking at things from the lens of truth. And, if someone says something bad about them, we're like, oh, don't say that. They're not here. I mean, the reality is they were flawed people. We all need to know everybody's flawed. There's no one that is perfect, in this life, except for us and our belief, Jesus. No one else. Okay, just saying, nobody else. And the reality is, a lot of people, because now all of a sudden this person isn't here, so we have to start looking at, what am I saying in my mind? What am I believing in my mind? Because the battle begins in the mind with grief.
Yeah.
So am I fueling my mind with what is true, or am I believing that which is false? And someone can go, what do you mean? What's false? Well, the fact that you say, I'm never going to get over this. I'm always going to be able to walk through this. That's not true. Now, what I can tell you, it will become true, because your body, this is where the body lines up with what you're telling it. So if I'm thinking it and I'm saying to myself, I mean, I just said, I have no life now. Well, guess what? You keep saying that to yourself, you will find yourself with no life, and you will also find yourself with physical problems,
Mm-hmm.
because the body takes on and it keeps the score of the emotions and the mental aspect of what you're feeding it. So it's just like you feed your body good food, it stays healthy. You feed your body bad food, it becomes unhealthy. Same with our mind. So we look at the entirety of the body. That's the one thing I love about our modality. It's not just focused on emotions. A lot of people just want to focus on the emotional aspect. We go in and say, kind of tell me about how you're processing your grief. I think that's the first question we have to come through. And the second is, have you given yourself permission to grieve?
Yes.
Because we need to give ourselves permission to grieve. If we don't give ourselves permission, guess what? The body is holding tight and it's not going to grieve. And the soul, where does the soul come in? When I talk about the soul is different than the body. The soul in scripture, it talks about, oh, my soul, why is my soul so downcast? What does that mean? It means that whatever's happening here is going into the soul of who I am, into my heart, and that it is taking on its own persona. Well, I need to make sure whatever persona is going in that is of life. And I think in this place, this is where we really encourage our clients to choose whether you want to live from the tree of life or the tree of death, because the tree of life and the tree of death affect the mind, body, soul, and spirit. And people are going to ask, well, how does it affect your spiritual life? Well, the spiritual aspect, if I'm not speaking truth and living truth, and whatever my belief system is, and for us, because we're Christians, my belief system comes into question. I think belief systems can come into question when we're grieving.
Yeah.
Because somehow we think, well, if I believed, why am I having this happen to me? because I really felt I should be exempt of loss, exempt of grief and pain. This is horrible. And so then we may become angry at our belief system because all of a sudden we're facing something and we think we should have been delivered from it. Well, for us, I think that realigns. This is where kind of the rubber meets the road in our belief system. Either we know truth and we're living by truth, or we're living by a falsehood. And so that's where the spirit aspect comes in. So you can't leave that component out either, because it all has to do with how we move in and flow through incorporating our grief as to whether we breathe again, move again, and live again in this life. And personally, I want to do all of that. I didn't want to just stop and just die.
Yes. And it's all, you're right. It's all connected. Um, you can't just heal one and not heal the other.
That's right. But some people focus on one and they do have unhealed parts. I just had a client last week who came to me and I was explaining some of this stuff. And I said that the liver actually stores anger, the lungs store grief. I was telling her there's different emotions that go into different parts of our body. This is science. I'm not making this up. Y'all can go and look. Scientifically, this has been researched and noted. And she got really quiet. And she said, I've never had any problems with my liver. And she said, I've had problems. And she said, because I have been very, very angry.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize there was a correlation.
Yeah. And I know you have a correlation between grieving and menopause. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, my word. You know, I was in perimenopause when my son passed, and I would have been 51, 51. And guys, I'm usually great about going to the doctors, but I mean, I've got a family now that's grieving and I'm kind of all on. And it wasn't that I was negligent, Amy, but I really didn't realize the time lapse. So it had been over a year, almost a year and a half, and I went in to my gynecologist to have a check. She said, we need to run some numbers. And she did. And she said, Marcia, I don't know how you're living. And I said, what do you mean? She said, you hardly have any testosterone. You're pretty depleted of most all estrogen, and you have minimal progesterone. You've gone through full menopause. So the grief caused my body to go into an accelerated menopausal state. And women, if you're listening, you need to understand any kind of trauma can cause our bodies to have an accelerated movement into some type of change hormonally.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did that change, but also my thyroid, because there was such depletion in the other areas of my life, it affected my thyroid as well. So I started becoming very self-aware of the things I needed to do. Now, my thyroid didn't tank for another, I think it was like a year and a half, 2 years, because they were so concerned to get my hormone levels back up. I think my thyroid went out over here on the side somewhere. And then all of a sudden, when things started leveling off, my thyroid was like, I'm here and I am in a deficit and I need some help. So it, to me, and we have to be advocates for ourselves. Yeah. I'm a huge advocate. So I really, something was wrong. I had gone to doctors. They weren't even figuring out that it was my thyroid until I went to an endocrinologist, because I was having issues breathing. Ladies, listen to me. I was having issues breathing. And everyone kept saying it was asthma. It was not asthma. They put me on so many different medications. It was my thyroid, because you can have labored breathing with thyroid issues. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was having. So this was a whole new process for me to have to incorporate. And self-care during this time is so essential. And I really thought I was taking care of myself, but I forgot to go to the doctor and have my checkup. I'm serious, with my doctor over my gynecologist. And so I just want to encourage people that if they're walking through trauma, any kind of trauma, and they're starting to feel, and I didn't feel any of the symptoms. I want everyone to know I didn't feel any of the symptoms because my doctor looked at me and she said, I don't even know how you're standing and walking. I've never had a client who's been as low as you are. And honestly, I just feel like it was the sustenance of God because I had this family that I needed to be present for. And, so I'm praiseful over that, but it took a while to get my body regimented.
Yeah,
So it's real. It's
it
real.
is real.
Yes.
I believe it. Um, Now, if somebody is going through the grieving process and they may be having physical symptoms and other issues, you have a book that can help them. So, can you talk about that?
Yes. The Gripping Grace in the Garden of Grief is a great book. It really does go through the litany of emotions and the challenges of grieving, but also how to release, the hope in the journey. Some questions. I think there's 21 questions in the book that you can ask yourself every day because it's changing. It's a variable. Grief is a variable. So those questions are never going to get old. And I have a prayer in that book that actually starts at your head and it goes from the cerebellum into the amygdala because the amygdala in the back of your head is where all of your trauma and your grief is stored. And it goes through a releasing and it goes through each of the body parts and what is stored in those body parts for healing so that you can experience that healing and walk in that healing. And again, I'm a big believer in speaking life over your body. So speak it out loud, read those prayers out loud so that you can have your body being enabled in those words. And it's like their armor, for help. So it's important. And I just would encourage people that if you know anyone grieving, you're grieving yourself, great resource for you to have.
Amazing. And I will put links down in the show notes so people can get that. Um, Lastly, just talk a little bit about your Sterling Rose Sanctuary.
The Sterling Rose Sanctuary is all over the US. And we just hit our seventh country um,
Nice.
3 weeks ago. So that was exciting. And so we minister to people. However, we are having a capital campaign right now for people that this aligns with. They can actually donate to it so that we can get a physical place for people from all over the world to come to for 3 to 5 days for a different aspect of healing within and on the property, which we are very excited about. And it's needed. Why is it needed? Because people who are grieving and who have trauma need to be removed from the places that they experience trauma for a reset. And many of the people we deal with are still in places where they're triggered by their trauma. So having them away for a while to have that reset, to have some resources and rest is so essential. And if they want to read about the rooms that will be in the house on the property, they can see that on our website under our capital campaign.
Nice. And again, I will link all of that below. It sounds beautiful, just the way you describe it. Where can
It
people?
will be a beautiful place.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm sure that's part of the healing, right?
Yes,
Nice.
yes.
Where can people connect with you?
They can go on to the web and go to www.thesterlingrosesanctuary.us and they can reach out to us and we get back pretty quickly with people because we know that you're in a state of an emergency, so we want to be present with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing work that you are doing. And I'm really happy to share your mission out.
Well, I appreciate it. And I feel like that your podcast is really important because I don't think that we understand the component of what grief can do to our bodies
Yeah.
and that it can change the hormonal aspects of of who we are and how we operate, and that we really need to be attentive to each aspect walking through, which to some people can be a little overwhelming. So what you do is, and this is one of the things I say, take a month, every month, do a month check. Like, how am I doing emotionally? Am I feeling any physical changes that I need to have addressed? how's my soul? Is it well with my soul? If not, what things do I need to do? And mentally, what am I feeding myself? And also food. We can talk about food. We also, in the Sterling Rose Sanctuary, encourage people not to have carbs and sugars while they are processing their grief, because what happens is carbs and sugars holds the grief in place,
Yep.
and you're keeping the toxins in people, and it's not flushing out of your body.
Yep.
We want things to really be purifying, and so that you can have that whole sense of healing fully
Yes,
for yourself.
absolutely. Totally agree with that. The sugars even spike your stress hormones, right? So
Yes, yes,
you don't
yes.
want that either.
No. And it also, because you are grieving, your sleep can
Hmm.
be affected. And we just had this conversation the other day. Someone said, I just feel so foggy. My mind's at a, and I said, well, your mind, I said, tell me about your breathing. And they're not breathing. So when we have shallow breathing, that's one of the reasons why we feel like we can't think in grief. So
Right.
we do a lot of diaphragmatic breathing exercises with our clients to help them get some deep breaths, get some oxygen in, because if you're not getting oxygen in, you're not able to have oxygenated cells in your body that are healing you. It's
Yeah.
just kind of like stale air. That's what you're working with. That nobody wants stale air in their body.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
I will be sure to send your information out to anybody I come across that is grieving because, again, I think the work that you're doing is really amazing. Um, and I'm so glad that you are here and you shared this powerful story and mission of yours. So thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity, Amy. I appreciate it.
Are you struggling to be the best mom you can be? Are you fatigued, overwhelmed, and stressed out? Are you losing precious time with your family because of PMS? If so, sign up for my free gift on how to start living in tune with your monthly cycle. The link to get it is in the show notes below. Use this guide to help you start to eliminate your symptoms of PMS, increase your energy, reduce stress, and fully enjoy this incredible mom life. The way I see it, you have three choices. You can try to figure it all out on your own. You can do nothing and stay where you are, or you can get the customized guidance you need to thrive as a mom. The choice is yours. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you learned something from these stories. If you enjoyed this show, please make sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. It really helps this show grow. If you have a mom story you would like to share, click on the link in the description below on becoming a podcast guest. Remember, the content on this podcast is for general information only. It does not replace any medical advice given by your healthcare providers. Please check with your doctor if you have any questions about your specific condition and before starting any new diet or exercise regimen. Thank you, and you will hear from me soon.